Hello, everybody. Wolfpack here, and welcome to the Single Malt Strategy Podcast. This is episode 81, and I am joined by my amazing co-host, Tortuga Power, the historical gamer, and Finnish Jager, who you have come to know and love.
Well, cut. We're gonna have to. That was awful. We'll have to redo that.
Damn.
Oh, was that really bad?
Not great or terrible.
Thank you, the historical gamer, coming with the Comrade Dyatlov quote. As you can hear, folks, episode number 81 of the Single Malt Strategy Podcast is off to a roaring start. The chemistry here is just impeccable. It's a sight to behold, that's for sure.
Yeah, okay. I just want to say, though, don't worry. You're always a disappointment in my eyes. So that's fair.
So, getting on with episode 81, do we have a particular topic that we're going through, gang, or is it just...
Well, we're going to do our usual, the intro thing where we just talk about what we're playing lately.
Okay, well, since I'm the host for this episode, I'm going to go with the least annoying person here today. Finnish, would you like to discuss what you've been playing?
Sure, that's the highest praise anyone has given me this year, I think. The least annoying person among a group of 4 people.
Who are all 4 quite annoying. Let's all be honest.
I'm the least annoying of 4 annoying people. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I'm the most annoying.
Who are these ladies? Am I going to be interrupted by another sound clip?
No.
All right, what have I been playing recently? Well, since the NHL season has started, I started playing Eastside Hockey Manager again. Been playing Minecraft, which it's all right. Call to Arms with Wolfpack. Played some World of Warships and even War Thunder.
Call to Arms, I've been playing that as well, obviously, with Finnish. Great game. Looking forward to the new expansion coming out called Liberation.
What's Liberation about again?
Western Front. It's going from, D-Day landing in Europe all the way. I think the German campaign is set during the Battle of the Bulge. Yeah, they're adding the United States. That's the big thing, and quite a few German vehicles and such. So,
okay, yeah, that's pretty cool because it's always been just an Eastern Front focus, and then they added like a Finnish Winter War, which is obviously still sort of Eastern Front, but
right.
DLC at one point, and so now they're going to actually be like, hey, those Western allies, they like to think they were important. Let's include them.
Yeah, I think the Western Front sells really well, and will hopefully bring a lot of new people to the game. Italy would be cool. North Africa adding the British, and then I want Pacific. I want some island hopping. I think that would be a blast.
You just went, no small ask there. Just give me everything.
No small ask. So developers, I would like you to pretty much do every theater of the Second World War. Pretty minor war, not a whole lot going on there.
And why leave out Korea, the Korean War? I think the game would do really well with a Vietnam War style. You could have
that'd be cool.
One side trying to ambush the other, helicopters flying everywhere. That seems fun.
I'm holding out for Yugoslav Partisans DLC.
Yeah,
that seems more feasible.
That would be actually kind of cool. There is actually a mission in the German campaign where you're fighting off partisans and such. Like there are a lot of stealth missions in campaigns, small unit tactics. Like they do a lot of awesome work in the actual campaign missions. I do like the dynamic campaign a lot, but those cool set pieces and the story-driven campaign are pretty sweet. Yeah, looking forward to that. That's really all I've been playing. Didn't mean to completely derail it, Finnish, if you had anything else you were gaming.
No, I think that's it.
Just to make sure we just say a word about what they are. I forgot the name of it.
Eastside Hockey Manager?
Yeah. Well, I guess that one speaks for itself. That's just a sports sim manager, just the same way Football Manager.
What kind of sports do you manage in that?
And then there's Minecraft, that brand new game no one's ever heard of before by an indie developer.
Yeah, that one's pretty. Yeah, that one's a rare one.
Hey, speaking of, what's this like? How is the state of World of Warships? I feel like last time I tried to play it, it very much felt like it was sort of a dying game, sort of on the back end of being a thing. And that was like, I don't know, 6 to 12 months ago, the last time I tried to dabble around in it. It felt like I was waiting forever for matches, and just it didn't feel like, when I had played it a lot 3 years ago or so. It just felt much more vibrant, and this kind of felt like, hey, it's kind of an online services type game that's just petering out, is kind of how it felt to me.
I think that's a relatively accurate assessment. There's a ton of like the lower tier battles that are just not populated with players, so the game fills it in with bots. I only played a handful of PvP maps or matches. and there was no bots in those, but they were like tier 6, tier 8, tier 7, and it was fine. But World of Warships, you just have to just forget that there's any sort of real naval combat or whatever. Like, the only realistic thing about it is how the historical ships look.
Even then, there's some issues, right? Like Gneisenau.
Yeah, it doesn't even have the the right guns. It has the alternate kind of the planned guns.
Did it give them the 15 inchers?
Yeah, but I think they were 15, the same as the Bismarck.
Yeah, because I know when they built the Gneisenau, they designed it so they could swap dual 15-inch turrets on instead, but they had 11 inchers available, so that's what got mounted, and they never actually went through and put the 15s on.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I hear you. If I'm looking for my accurate naval combat game, I always go for Azure Lane instead.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, you were streaming that the other day, weren't you?
Yeah, first time. And I'll stream it every month or 2 or 3.
Cool.
With War Thunder looks like it's a great looking game, but I felt like I was even more disappointed in that game than World of Warships.
we're going to get blasted in the comments, but I completely agree. At least War Thunder or World of Warships, you know what it is. You know what you're getting into. War Thunder, I get them confused. War Thunder has this gloss over it that it's realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But your submarine crushes when it goes below 60 meters.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. It's like people think War Thunder is, more semi than it is. And it's like when you play World of Warships, you're like, yeah, this is an arcade game. And so is War Thunder, really. I mean, but it was still fun to mess around with they had a Battle of the Atlantic mode, which I conscripted Finnish to try with me.
Did War Thunder ever make its naval combat? Because I remember watching folks play with it, and it felt like it was all inshore type stuff, like destroyers, patrol boats. Like World of Warships always kind of went with, we're going to go with the bigger ships and stuff, even though, again, not trying to be realistic. At least if you want like a Bismarck or something like that. The few times I watched War Thunder, it was like, what the hell is this? It's just like...
Yeah, so... Initially, War Thunder started off with PT boats. I think the heaviest thing they went to was like frigates or maybe even destroyers. They've since changed that because, well, people aren't interested in really driving around in PT boats. Although I am. I think that's actually kind of fun. And now there are larger ships.
Yeah, there's battleships. Yeah, we looked at them.
There are battleships. Arizona's in there. They have heavy cruisers and such. But I've honestly have very little time in War Thunder. It's one of those things. It's like it's too late for me to get into. I feel like I'm so behind.
Another game to grind through.
Yeah, and I just don't. I am not interested at that really.
Well, in War Thunder and World of whatever, it felt like War Thunder was always like, at least initially, aircraft type stuff was sort of their specialty. World of Tanks was like the big thing for the World of, I think, right? And then World of expanded to ships, and War Thunder expanded to tanks.
Yeah,
naval was kind of the last thing that War Thunder tried, I think.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I don't know that they ever had like an audience catch on in the way that tanks and aircraft did.
Yeah, no, that's correct.
Whereas I think World of Tanks definitely had a pretty sustained success with warships as well. But they were always kind of lagging on because I think they had a World of Warplanes also, but I think that was always kind of like...
Yeah, I think that one flopped.
Yeah. So it's interesting how the different companies approach these different sort of segments or areas in different orders, and it almost seems like the later that they approached it, the less successful they were.
Yeah, I feel like my impression of War Thunder warships was really not a whole lot different than World of Warships. It was like they're just kind of replicating that same model. It's an arcade game mode, and got your hit point system, basically. You're sailing around, third-person mode. There was nothing that made it feel different.
I will say, I do like the way War Thunder hides their hit point system with their kind of damage modeling, like showing off exactly where your shells hit and stuff and hitting critical components or whatever.
Yeah, I like that too.
I'm pretty sure it's still a hit point system. They just hide it. But that's kind of nifty. It's something I never really got into, mainly because I think initially it was planes and I didn't like flying in War Thunder. I was still doing IL-2 1946. Yeah, that's it really. Wow, what a tangent.
So, well, but kind of on that related topic, if we're done going through the games that you were talking about, Finnish.
Yeah, I'm done.
Wolf, you posted You posted a screenshot in, I think it was in your Discord, of like, it looked like at least 20 jugs or P-47s like lined up on an airstrip. What was that? That looked awesome.
Oh yeah, that was IL2. Great battles.
So was that like an event?
So I fly with a group called FTC, called Flying Tin Cans. They do campaign missions every week. Right now they started a D-Day campaign. And you have your virtual pilot and you keep track of his kills and stuff. And if that pilot dies, it's dead is dead, that sort of thing. But it's all with real players. So yeah, it's kind of fun. Definitely look into checking them out. I have a few videos on it on the channel. But yeah, I do enjoy it quite a bit. All the missions are handcrafted and such. So, and it is impressive to see that many aircraft in IL2.
So you guys, how many P-47s were in that? Like how many were in the event?
I mean, the server was maxed out. So I think close to 80 people.
All in aircraft, or were anybody in, like, I'm assuming no one was, you can't tank in Normandy yet, can you?
Yeah, no one was tanking. It was mostly players. There are some players who do like a GCI sort of position, like coordinating aircraft and vectoring them to specific targets or whatnot. But most of it is players and planes, yeah.
So you guys had like 40 aircraft on each side-ish?
This one was way more Allied heavy because, I mean, during Overlord...
I guess it is Normandy.
Yeah, it's the campaign, we started on June 6th. And, I mean, the amount of sorties the Allies flew is astronomical compared to, I think the Germans even flew in the hundreds. I may be wrong there. I'm sure someone will let me know, but yeah, the amount of Allied sorties is insane. So there weren't that many German players playing during that particular mission.
Were there any AI aircraft or all human?
I think they may throw some AI aircraft in these missions, but generally it's mostly human. Yeah.
I don't know. That just looked pretty awesome to me. The idea of having like dozens of human aircraft all flying off. Because I know I've played IL-2 a bit, and the campaigns are interesting, and you get I feel like for the tank stuff, you get a little bit more scale. But like the air stuff is always relatively limited in scale. Yeah, there's quite a few aircraft, and for any one individual pilot, it's often more than you. It's not like you're shooting down the whole Air Force, but like the idea of having 20 or 30 concentrated aircraft like in one wing going to one mission and like an equivalent enemy group trying to stop you is a bit more than what you typically see even in the AI campaign stuff.
And that's really where IL-2 Great Battle struggles compared to like IL-2 1946. There's another content creator out there called Enigma. He does a lot of flight simulator stuff. He also does some Gates of Hell stuff. He's been really good at hosting events and stuff through his Discord, and they do some like 1946 events, some IL-2 1946 events, and those are pretty massive, seeing that many aircraft together, and the game running really well. Like I know they recently did an event with the Channel Dash, so Operation Cerberus. It's where the Germans took Tirpitz and moved her through the channel.
Yeah, Scharnhorst, Gneisenau, and then maybe like Admiral Hipper or someone like that.
Oh, Scharnhorst and Gneisenau. Yeah, I'm sorry. Not Tirpitz.
Tirpitz was just stuck in the fjord, rusting.
Yeah. What was I thinking? I'm sorry. My nerd cred.
Yeah, I was going to say, thank goodness we have Finnish here who can correct the historical inaccuracies.
I said Tirpitz, and I was like, that is not right.
He's like, well, actually,
can we cut that?
No, we're gonna show your embarrassment. Can we pay to send Finnish to go watch the Napoleon movie and tell us how bad it is?
You can pay me to do a lot of things, to be honest. $20 is $20.
Anyway, sorry to go off on a tangent. I've just been seeing like my social media feed is filled with people who are like, this thing is a fucking travesty of everything anyone has seen about it so far. And like
wow, the language on this podcast.
Well, it is listed as explicit, you fucker, so.
Whoa.
Sorry. I thought it would be more dramatic if I dropped an F-bomb.
Are we not boycotting IL-2, by the way?
Are we? Are they Russian?
They're pro-Russian.
Well, yeah, and they had a hiccup on their Twitter. Which, you know what? Speaking of which, that's one thing, the Wargaming, that's the one that does World of Warships, right? You know, that's one thing they've been pretty pro-Ukraine about the whole situation. It's kind of cool to see.
I didn't know that. That is cool. That's World of Warships?
And World of Tanks.
Yeah, I don't even know where they're based. I think Gaijin, which does War Thunder, is Russian based as well. They're all Russians. I don't know. What are you going to do?
But Gaijin hasn't come out and been like rah rah Russia the same way that post like.
There was some sort of scandal early on during the Russian invasion of Ukraine, if I remember correctly.
Wasn't there some like Gaijin VP or like product manager or someone like high profile over there came out and was basically like, Russia, yeah, Ukraine or Nazis or something like it was. There was some really controversial social media post.
And that's exactly what happened with IL-2. Like, a guy forgot to log out of his Twitter account, really. I think that's probably what happened. And, you know.
It happens to the best of us.
I don't know that I've ever seen anything for War Thunder with aircraft, but I don't know that preservation is quite the same scale. But like the World of Warship stuff, if you go to a lot of different warship museums, there's often some sort of collaboration there. At least there was when I went to Yorktown in South Carolina like 4 years ago. They had all this like World of stuff that they were advertising there.
Yep.
So they clearly had like a relationship with the museums there to try and like leverage that, but also support them.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
And to support that claim, when I went to the Mikasa, they had World of Warship stuff there too. They also had Azur Lane stuff there too, but that's a different story.
Well, that's understandable. I'd put Azur Lane stuff there as well. If I were running that museum, like, those museum runners know their audience.
That's right.
Get lap dances in this turret.
Whoa. My God.
Okay, we gotta cut the last 10 minutes. I also love that Tortuga has not said a single thing.
I was waiting for it to become relevant.
I don't know. I think this is all relevant, Mr. Grinch.
I am just waiting for. I can't talk about these things. I'm not going to talk about something I don't know about.
Okay. But do you want to talk about Creative Assembly? There's buzz going on there.
Well, you don't want to talk about what you've been playing lately?
Oh, I guess I should. But let's finish it. What about Wolf?
Do we even need to do that segment? Let's just keep talking.
There's a good one. No, there's a really good one though. It's going to bring up some. You're going to want to hear this one finish.
All right.
So, Wolf, you've been playing IL-2 obviously because that's like your job. But have you been playing anything else?
No, move on. Go do it yourself. Who cares about Wolf?
We're not supposed to let Wolf finish?
I will say I haven't been doing much flight sim stuff on the channel or really in general, but I'm getting my groove back. I've been playing a lot of DCS actually. I mostly have just been doing IL-2 with that group. Yeah, Cold Waters, Silent Hunter.
Well, those are good.
All that good stuff. That's about it. I haven't been playing too much.
How excited are you guys that like all the games that were on our most anticipated list for 2023 haven't come out yet?
I was thinking about that.
The year's still young, baby.
By the time this airs, it'll probably be like December 40th. Oh, wait, that's not a date.
December 40th. Oh, my God.
Did you say December 40th?
Yes, I did.
He did.
But anyway, what have I been playing? I've been playing a little bit of Arms Trade Tycoon Tanks, the demo there.
That's the one. Finish. I think this is a good conversation. We got to talk about Arms Trade Tycoon.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Just sort of a refresher for those of you who may be unaware. Arms Trade Tycoon Tanks is basically the concept behind the game is that you are it's a tycoon game. So like you build a company, you build products, you sell products and design products and make money, right? Like it's a traditional business tycoon style game. Sort of the unique hook of Arms Trade Tycoon is in the title, right? Instead of running a company in like mainstream civilian areas, you're building tanks. So you're running a manufacturing company. It starts during World War I, where you design World War I tanks. Speaking of historical inaccuracies, you're building tanks in 1914. But you design these tanks, you sell them to at least in the current version to the British government and see how they perform and whatnot. The game's been in a demo-ish state for quite a while. I think they're in an alpha build now. They did a Kickstarter and a demo 2 years ago, I think.
Yes.
And then they like re-engineered the whole game to be like, hey, instead of this 2D company map, let's make it 3D, and now you can drive your tanks through this like training ground thing, which felt like maybe someone had played Sprocket and they thought that would be a good idea to include in the game, which Sprocket's like another game where you design tanks except void of the tycoon aspect. It's just design the tank, drive it around and see what it does. They have a lot of sort of baffling decisions, I think, on the design front. It almost feels like they had an idea of a traditional tycoon game, they got feedback from their initial supporters, and they lost the plot. that's kind of my 2 cents. Again, the game's not finished yet. This isn't a review. I'm not saying it's going to be terrible because I actually do enjoy it, but I just don't know that I've seen a ton of progress that they've made. And I don't know that like the changes they've made add much. Like they changed the map from a 2D map to a 3D map on the company screen. And I think the 3D looks worse and looks less interesting than a basic 2D company grounds. I don't need to drive my tank. It's a tycoon game. It's not a sim game. So like, it just seems like they're making some weird decisions that I think maybe they're listening to too many folks.
I think that a lot of the things I was going to cover were included in the last 3 minutes of your little monologue there. Basically, I agree. It was a demo. It was very good. The idea is, I think, is extremely compelling game idea. And I'd actually like to see this done. You'd almost imagine that they had planned it this way with a name like, I mean, the name is just does not roll off the tongue. Let me try to get it. Arms Trade Tycoon Tanks. But with a name like that, you kind of hope that maybe there's an Arms Trade Tycoon Ships or something like that. And I honestly think that would be a very, very interesting game. It's very reminiscent of Gear City, even Automation to a degree, which is the civilian side of things. But, you know, you're building cars and selling them to people. And to do that on a military, and on the military side of things, where you're building a tank, or I think it'd be awesome if Rule the Waves met Gear City and you were doing that for ships.
We may have mentioned this before, Tortuga, but like my dream, like if I was to design a game, and I have written like 20 pages of notes on this, so like whatever, it's not going to happen. I don't have the skills to do it. So my 2 cents to the developers, I'll give you a free rebranding. Military Industrial Complex. There's your name, or Military Industrial Tycoon or something like that, right? Like, the Arms Trade Tycoon is just it's a weird with tanks at the end is weird. My idea was always to do it with aviation, but like there's no reason you can't do it with ships. You could be a shipyard manager. There's no reason you can't do it with aviation, or tanks. So I agree. It's an incredibly compelling concept. It just feels like they're stuck in neutral. And I think there's a lot of interesting things they could do with it, but it feels like they want to redesign the stuff that already felt like it was pretty well fleshed out and not focus on doing maybe some of the things that they hadn't done yet.
I kind of want to drill down into that a little bit without running our mouths on it the entire podcast. But I feel like it's such a fascinating situation that I've watched this happen almost. Because the demo came out, as you said, it was 2 years ago because I looked it up. It felt when I played the recent alpha, closed alpha, that the game hadn't moved anywhere. And then I had to look up how long ago was it that the demo, which was really engrossing and it made me excited to play the next step in the game. The demo ended, like the technology wasn't done beyond like 1916 or something like that. So it was naturally limited that you couldn't move on. But I would love to have seen that demo just fleshed out with the later years and polished. They could have done some UI enhancements. And that's one of my complaints is like for all the changes that they've made, they didn't address very basic things that were a problem in the demo. Did nobody talk about the load times? The game is basically bouncing between research, design, engineering, production. And every time you click to a new place, you face like, it's not super long, maybe a 5-second loading screen. But when you click a new place, you just select a research. That takes about 5 seconds. I mean, it's like half your time is spent in loading screens. It's kind of ridiculous.
It's almost like you bought a house. The upstairs was mostly finished, and you liked kind of what you saw, and the downstairs was a complete gut job. And they've spent the last 2 years changing stuff upstairs, but not necessarily making it better, and leaving the whole downstairs completely void.
Yeah. I'm a critical person by nature, so I want to say that I still really enjoy the underlying concept, and I'm still drawn to this game, and I hope that it fixes the things that bother me right now, like the loading screens. It's an alpha, so there's time, but the most bewildering thing is I don't understand what they've done for the last 2 years. And I actually have a quote I can read from one of the people on the team who has been very nice, and my interactions with him are nothing but positive. I actually asked at this point and tried it, in a polite way, what exactly has been done. This is what the list is. There has been a complete overhaul of the architecture to allow easy scaling to other eras and nations. Okay, I mean, that's obviously, if it's architecture that's under the hood, we're not going to see that. So hopefully that's just true and things will be easier later, God willing. Okay, everything is now full 3D. Factory grounds, facilities, buildings, and even every single tank modification. I don't know that we needed that at all. And that's what you and I were already talking about.
I think the 2D art looked better than the 3D world that they have built. I think the 3D world that they have built is very washed out, bland. Maybe it's more realistic looking, but it's less interesting for a player to look at than I think what they had for the 2D factory grounds before.
Agreed.
I was going to ask you about your opinion on this, Finnish. You want to jump in, Finnish, talk about your opinion on all these things?
Not yet.
Okay, well, let me finish reading what their change list is, because they also include players can try their tanks on the trial range, which is what you mentioned, THG, the Sprocket-like edition. This is the crucial thing. And in general, we tried to accommodate much of the feedback we got from the demo. And that's the thing right there, isn't it, THG? I think that's what they probably got feedback, and they listened to people, and that's the problem, is that when you listen to people, you're just led astray. Mm-hmm. I don't listen to anybody, and that's why I'm...
You gotta listen to the right people.
I feel like we see it a lot of times when there's a game that's in early access or whatever, and they listen to the community, and there's like a small vocal, minority.
Yes.
That really has a vision for changing things, and it gets changed to that. And it's like, you've made this game different to please, a small group of people who are like commenting on your forums. And it makes the game worse, in my opinion.
It's probably hard to avoid, right?
I saw that with Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts, too.
Oh, yeah, good point.
I was going to say this is the exact same. Like, I was going to use that as an exact example. Finnish, that is a brilliant comparison where you've been working on this game for how long? Like, at its core, what's... I guess the campaign is more fleshed out because the campaign didn't exist when they first launched. But like the first version of the campaign that they released to now, it's like, okay, yeah, I've seen some changes. I don't know that any of the core problems or the core promises that you said you were going to deliver with the game that people were excited about. Like at some point after 2 years, people lose hope. Now, this is a little different in that I think it's a closed alpha where you have to be like a Kickstarter person, I think, to get access to it or something like that. So
yeah, quickly, the closed alpha period has now ended, and they say that the beta will be in another month. So hopefully things are going to move quickly.
So we'll see. Yeah. But I mean, it just makes me, it's interesting too, because it's another one of those situations where they found a publisher who's microprose, whereas Ultimate Admiral got bought out by Stillfront. So like both games sort of started under a different ownership structure than where they are now, or maybe not ownership, but partnership. But yeah, it just feels exactly like Ultimate Admiral, where they spent two years working on stuff, and I don't think any of the core problems or issues were adjusted. And actually, this really does tie back to episode 78, Tortuga, when we had Alekias on, and we talked about early access, right? Like, when you go to early access, what's the objective that you have on early access? It shouldn't be to have your community design your game. And that's kind of what it feels like is happening here.
Yeah, well, I think Finnish hit the nail on the head, right? He said the vocal minority. This is, it's really hard not to listen to the vocal minority because they're vocal, right? I mean, if you have a forum, I have not been on a games forum in God knows how long, but I have opinions on games. I just usually express them to people who aren't the developers. Or I generally, for a game, I might really like it. I don't have anything to say to them. Like, great job, but I'm not going to go to your forum and say that. I should probably, but I don't. But guess who are the people who, the ones who are like super interested? Though I can almost say it's almost like a Hearts of Iron 3 thing. I love Hearts of Iron 3, but I feel like Hearts of Iron 3 was probably made because people who were like super gung-ho about Hearts of Iron 2 being much more detailed talked to Paradox, and they kind of like led Paradox down this super detailed path. And it wasn't for everyone because it was probably in some ways too detailed. But that's what happens. The vocal minority, the people who are most interested in it, are usually they're going to skew things to an extreme that is just, it's going to not be as playable or as interesting to the main player base.
I don't work in game design, obviously, but I do some product design work in my job. And I think, that's another one of those things when you do consumer insights and people tell you what they want. If you don't come into that with like a very clear intent with what you're trying to do, then it is very easy to get led astray. And I think that's what you see here, right? Like, I think if you're going to go to early access, and we talked about this in that prior episode, you still need to have some authorial intent, if you will. You need to have a vision for what it is you're trying to do. And feedback can be very good, but you need to have, that doesn't change the core vision for your product, right? The feedback shouldn't change what are you trying to accomplish. It might change some of the how you're trying to accomplish it. But in this case, it just feels kind of like like the feedback is driving the bus. And without any vision, without any clear sense of, no, we're doing it this way because this is the experience we're trying to evoke, you get core architectural changes of going from 2D to 3D or other things like that, which really don't move the ball down the field to actually getting closer to finishing the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think about this topic every once in a while because of a certain project, and it's like if you crowdsource ideas, like I'd rather have those ideas come from the individuals who are, I don't know, making the game, because they have a vision and they should push that vision forward. Yeah, I briefly pulled up your old video, Tortuga, and then THG's recent video. There's some like graphic UI elements that I like with the new style, but all the 3D stuff it just looks unnecessary.
I bet when you watch that, you're like, oh wait, the new one is way better than I thought. Who is this Tortuga guy? He kind of sucks.
Oh,
I hope he leaves that in.
Well, I'm looking at the video here, and this Tortuga's video was 1 year ago, and I gave it a thumbs up like button 1 year ago. So
hey, why did I just get a thumbs down on that video? I will say we're being a little bit harsh on a game that has not even gotten into beta yet. You did mention that, Tortuga.
Yeah, it's an alpha. They'll iron it out. I mean, I'm sure like all these 3D assets, like how many of them are placeholders?
No, I think it's more about 2 years.
yeah, but I think this is stuff that we've talked about, stuff that they talked about in the early access videos. Like if you're going to release a product for people to judge and play, it needs to be at a state that's acceptable.
I thought that their demo was, though. That's the funny thing.
Yeah, the demo was bad. Yeah, I don't know. I feel a little iffy about like they're not yet anyway outside of the Kickstarter, which is a little different. They're not like selling this yet in terms of this is.
Wait, is this a Kickstarter game?
It was. I mean, they did a Kickstarter 2 years ago based off the demo that then they completely changed. But anyway,
I have a good segue to Kickstarter, but we can wait. Well, there is a particular... So I fancy a first-person shooter. I like my milsims. Things like Postscriptum, Squad, Hell Let Loose, Arma, that sort of thing. And I have played those games with all four of you. Well, there has been a new first-person shooter on the block, which I've been looking forward to, called Burning Lands. It is a Vietnam FPS, and it launched its Kickstarter maybe like 5 days ago as of recording this, and they have raised like $90,000 already, right? Well, the dev team quit.
Oh my god.
The entire dev team quit 5 days into the Kickstarter.
They made it pretty far.
Yeah.
How much of the game got written in 5 days?
And well, they have been developing the game previously. They quit over like issues with the owner, I believe, of the company, which is 0 Hour Interactive. But yeah, they raised all this money, and then the dev team came out and said, we're not working on the game. It's like, this is like the problem with Kickstarter. Like that is, yeah. Anyway, that was just like something that dropped. Like this has all happened today, and it's been interesting because this is a game I was actually watching like I kept updates. I kept looking at updates and such because it looked like they were going to allow you to fly Hueys and stuff with the joystick and stuff, and I appreciate that.
What was the goal for the Kickstarter?
Like I think they met it.
It says get us to early access was 110,000.
Yeah. And I think they did surpass that, and then people are obviously canceling their Kickstarter contributions, which I would. PSA, if you put money into this game, pull it out, because I would not.
You would not invest in a game that doesn't have developers? It seems like a wise idea.
Yeah, well, like, even if they do settle it, I think the developers are saying they're on strike, like that sort of thing. But that's still, like, that sort of turmoil and miscommunication. Like, they should have figured that out before the Kickstarter went up. I'm pretty sure the developers came to the owner before the Kickstarter went up, and the owner put the Kickstarter up anyway. And
then he bought, like, you know, a new sports car like 3 days into the Kickstarter when it was doing well.
Oh, man. Yeah, it sucked. I was even looking at the Kickstarter, and I was like, man, I hope this game, like, I'll fund this game. I was going to buy it.
What's the opposite of the Wolfpack? What's the opposite of the Wolfpack seal of approval?
We already know the opposite of Wolfpack is Sheep Solo.
Oh yeah, Sheep Solo.
I remember hearing about Burning Lands and thinking it was interesting. I I couldn't tell and this was before the Kickstarter. I was like, is this legit, or is this just like another one of those cheap, like low budget shooters that's gonna just be blah?
I think it was legit. I think the developers like who are working on the game actually had a vision and we're going through with it. And I mean, Rising Storm 2, like that's a Vietnam FPS. And I love that game. That game's awesome. I've played the heck out of that. And speaking of that, another game that was canned but is coming back from the dead is a first-person shooter called 83. This was Tripwire and Antimatter games. I think Antimatter. Tripwire was the publisher, and this was the publisher was sold or something like that. And these are the same developers that did Red Orchestra, Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. And yeah, it's a Cold War gone hot first-person shooter, and it looks like they're looking for alpha testers, beta testers for the game. So excited to see that coming back because it looked pretty cool. Cold War gone hot seems to be hot right now.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
In terms of game development.
I remember that because Arma had Reforger or whatever not that long ago, which feels like it had a big surge of publicity and popularity around it and has vanished into nothingness. But
it's kind of coming back. They've added helicopters to it recently, more vehicles. They seem to be forming it up nicely, and the more work they do on it, the more faith I have for Arma 4. I hope it turns out to be awesome because I did enjoy. I mean, we've played.
Yeah, I played with Tortuga also. We did like for a while. You were doing a lot of like Anastasi stuff in Arma too.
I never liked Anastasi as much as like I like the handcrafted like small.
Yeah,
ops.
we did those missions.
Those were fun. Although I do have some pretty fond memories in Anastasi. I couldn't remember if Tortuga, if you were on the artillery, if it was Belugan, but I remember there was one night we were playing and like someone like jacked an artillery while the rest of us were all assaulting an airport, and we were trying to guide the artillery onto the enemy positions, and I'm pretty sure we friendly fired the shit out of ourselves.
I also remember a specific mission with Wolf where we had to tell people to raise their hands. It was the best goddamn mission I've ever played.
Oh my god, I've watched you guys play that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh gosh, what with no easy day.
Oh man.
Yeah, what a mission.
I feel like I played that with you. That's like the only
Oh my goodness.
Arma mission I played.
I mean, Tortuga's channel started with an Arma video of him being a helicopter pilot, singing along to In the Arms of an Angel.
He loved that little bird mission.
That's right.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Gosh, all these members. What happened to this group? We've splintered, we've grown apart.
Anyway, that somehow we got onto Arma from Arms Trade Tycoon. I played a little bit of Yes Your Grace Snowfall, which I don't know how I feel about yet. That game is also currently in a closed beta. That is like it's an interesting like pixel art style game where you're a king, and the primary sort of hook is that you're basically trying to manage your family and your kingdom. Petitioners come to your throne and ask for things, and you have to manage resources while an external threat is on the way to coming to get you, and then you've also got to manage the politics of your family. I adored Yes Your Grace when it came out like 2 years ago. Snowfall's the sequel. I don't know. Maybe I'm in a different place in my life. I don't know if maybe it's just like it's not as novel of a hook as it was previously. What I've played in the closed beta it's not bad. It's like a technically sound game, but I don't know that it says, I don't know, just it doesn't have the same sort of hook to me as the game originally did. And I'm not entirely sure why. I do feel like the family's not as interesting to engage with. I think they had some really good writing and characters in the original, and in this game, it doesn't feel like your kids don't really do anything in the way that they did in the first one, at least not through the first 3 hours that I played. Your wife is like doing something weird, but like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it has the same sort of, maybe the writing is not as good. I guess that could be it too. It's not as well done. I guess we'll see how it shapes out if I get into like the battles and the later part of the story, but at least so far I'm playing through it. It's not a bad game, but it's not as good, I don't think, as the original was. And so we'll see how it plays out.
What was the game? Suzerain? Is that what y'all were discussing in the previous episode quite a bit?
Yes.
Yeah, there's Yes Your Grace is not, it's more like pixel art style play the game. Suzerain is more like visual novel style, like choose your adventure, but also I think the writing in Suzerain is very well done. Not that it's bad in Yes Your Grace, but I don't know that I'd put them on the same playing field. Suzerain has a DLC, Rizia, coming later this year, which I'm excited to play. We haven't even gotten to you, Tortuga. I think I'm pretty much done. I don't, I'm playing the usual stuff, but I think those are the two games that I've played that have been newish. I've been playing a bit of Starfield too, but we don't need to talk about that.
Wolf, are you still playing Baldur's Gate 3?
I'm kind of taking a little break from that. I've been playing Warhammer 40,000 Darktide recently, but yeah, I do want to get back to Baldur's Gate. I was hooked on that for a hot minute. It honestly made me want to go back and play the older Baldur's Gate games.
Are you watching all the romance scenes?
What's your thoughts on it?
Next question. My thoughts on Baldur's Gate 3? I like it quite a bit. It's fun. It's quite good. I was iffy on the turn-based combat. I never played Divinity Original Sin or any other game by the studio, actually, but I do love the first two Baldur's Gate games and Icewind Dale even. I like Icewind Dale a lot. I did enjoy those early Wizards of the Coast games, and I guess BioWare did Baldur's Gate, and who did? Interplay. Right, did Icewind Dale, I think. But yeah, no, I grew up playing those quite a lot, and Baldur's Gate 3 is great. Love it. Lots to do. You can do anything. It's the closest you can get to playing D&D virtually.
Tortuga, what about you? I think you're the only one we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, no, just 1 hour into the podcast. Getting over to Tortuga. I get it.
What are you playing podcast?
I mean, it's a shoot the shit podcast, right? Like, it's been a while since our last episode. We figured we should touch in. I didn't have a specific topic I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to hang out with my friends.
So I have another one of my games we'll bring up. I think is one of the things I'd like to continue talking about. I'll bring that one up last. I want to say I played Battle Brothers recently. Finnish knows about this. I was streaming on Twitch, but it just made me realize what a great game Battle Brothers is.
Yes,
it's got to be. I don't know how. It's actually kind of hard for me to play because it's one of those games just like XCOM where the RNG rolls, they can really just mess up your day. And I think people watching my stream know that I'm very familiar with that since I had to restart maybe 4 or 5 times before we got one that actually stuck. But you know what? The streaming aspect of it, I'm the kind of person, maybe other people are like this sometimes, where I might save scum. I'm really particular about a run going really well. In my head, I'm like, I don't want to waste time trying to get all the way back to this point. What if I make a run that goes to day 50 and then I die and I'll never know what happens at day 100? I've been cured of that. The streaming aspect where I just force myself to play I think the developers, the game designers wanted me to play, where I just did my best, but then if you fail, you fail, or you live with them. It's so liberating. So my message on Battle Brothers, first of all, for people who are interested in the tactical RPG type games, it's great. Get it. And if you do, and you're like me, you have to let go. It's just way more fun to play that game in a way where you accept that your people are dying and you fail and you start a new one. It's great. And they're actually coming out with a new game, Menace. It's called Menace, and that's supposed to be released in 2024, published by Hooded Horse, who I think is the number one publisher in my book right now.
I just want to say about Battle Brothers, as a stream viewer of twitch.tv/Tortuga Power, it's a ton of fun to watch. You named all the characters after people in chat. There was just it was very high engagement. So I love that. It's
a good stream game because you have people who end up kind of rooting for themselves or watching, they want to see what happens to their character. Yeah, I agree. It has that kind of aspect to it.
Maybe I'll have to try this out. This actually does look kind of fun.
Oh, it's really good.
You know what? I love games that are brutal. I don't enjoy having fun when I play a video game.
That's why you play Hell Let Loose and Postscriptum.
Yeah, that's why. Every game I play is just punishing, and I love that though.
Yeah, this is gonna be that then. I think you'll enjoy it.
Have you? Speaking of just punishing games, RPGs. Have any of you finished Kingdom Come Deliverance?
No.
Okay. I was just curious. I know we've all kind of played it, all kind of dabbled. I haven't finished it either. But I've been thinking about that game recently, and that was just
another good game. Yeah, very good game.
Random segue. Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. I just haven't gotten around to completing it.
So I played it this spring. I got back into it big time, started a new playthrough, and I think I got 30 hours into it. So I played it a pretty good chunk, but I didn't end up beating it.
Yeah. I need to go back to that because I mean the combat in that's fun. It's punishing, which again I really enjoy.
I feel like my main issue with the combat in that game is the way you like lock on to a character, which makes
The soft lock system.
Yeah, which makes, I don't have a better way necessarily, but it just makes when you're fighting more than one person, it feels like the game is fighting, like the system is fighting against you in some ways.
Which makes sense. I guess like part of that is, I mean, fighting multiple people would be insanely difficult, right?
For sure, but you wouldn't feel like I'm locked on to like I can't shift over easily, in the middle of a fight.
I see.
It's a very good game. I think it's very long. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is. You stick with Henry for a while.
Yeah, that's why I stopped. I'm probably like 60% through, and I always tell myself I'll go back one day. But
see, okay, my problem with RPGs, I love them, but I'll play 60% through, 70% through, or whatever. I'll drop the game for a bit. I've done this with Pillars of Eternity.
I can't wait to see you finish your thought here. I think I'm the same, but go.
But whenever I hop in,
what the fuck's going on?
and I go to my old party, I'm like, I don't remember what's going on. Maybe I should just restart. I should just restart and do it again.
Exactly.
And then I get, 60, 70% of the way through again before and the cycle repeats. I do this every time with all these games.
Yeah, that's what I did with Kingdom Come. I jumped back into it this year and I was like,
yeah.
One, I kind of remember, sort of, but I really don't remember the details.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but wouldn't it be just so much more enjoyable if I could remember all of it, all the details? Let's just start it up and let's just play through it again.
I didn't finish the first time, the second time, or the third, but this time, baby, we're going all in. We're going to finish this time. Yeah. Yeah, no. It's gosh, I do that with RPGs just because they're longer. I mean, I think that's.
Does anybody not do that? I guess is the question.
I'm sure there's some people out there who actually have long-term memory.
All right, well, let me segue over to a different topic altogether. We haven't covered any kind of, well, I guess this is kind of related to, maybe I just really like tycoon games because, but I was playing a little bit of Planet Coaster. That is a good game.
Are you going to stream that at all? I want to watch that.
Yeah, I'll stream it. I'm trying to learn it so that I look less incompetent on camera. It's my usual modus operandi. But I would just say it's, for anybody who likes Roller Coaster Tycoon, it's an easy recommend. It's extremely well polished. I really like the game, and it definitely scratches that Roller Coaster Tycoon itch. Although Roller Coaster Tycoon, honestly, I think has aged just fine, and you can just play that too. Okay, one other game I've been playing, I think this could be a conversation piece as well, is I was playing a little bit of Total War Rome Remastered, and which in my opinion is not necessary.
You know what makes me angry about that?
Do tell me.
I love Rome. Easy favorite Total War game. Love it. The remaster, they just decided to take the most perfect UI ever in existence and massacre it. It is atrocious.
It's very strange. I mean, I've noticed this too. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what they were thinking there.
Yeah, no, what were they thinking?
Did they use the new UI like in their new games?
No, it's not even that good. It's worse. It's bad. It's like it's a mobile game.
Oh,
I don't know. You make Rome 1 remastered. Who do you think's going to buy that? Probably a lot of people who played Rome 1. I don't think they'd be going for necessarily a brand new audience. I would have been perfectly happy with a 4K version, upscaled old school Rome UI.
Here's what happened though. So Feral Interactive is listed as one of the two developers on this. They're the ones who ported this originally before the remaster came to PC. Feral Interactive made Total War Rome on tablets, and they sold it on tablets.
Oh. Right.
And then they did the remaster for PC. So they probably took whatever they did for the tablet version and just said, okay, well, let's put it on the PC and now call it a remaster. Like they weren't going back to the base game to do that. They were just using the work that Feral had already done and then whatever other changes they need to do to put it on PC.
And like it looks good graphically, like everything's nice. It's just that UI is it's atrocious.
I don't think I'd even recommend remastered. I have the original games and they play, and I boot up remastered just, I don't know why. because it's installed pretty much. I might not even recommend it though. I might say the original ones are on sale.
No, yeah, I don't think I would either. Like, do they even sell the OG ones though on like Steam? Like, I'm sure they do on GOG or whatever, but
It's still in my Steam account, so
Yeah, but games can be delisted and they don't.
But yeah, no, I agree. I that was really disappointing. It's like, how do you screw this up?
There's no price, which to me means you can't buy
you can't
it.
purchase it anymore. Damn.
But don't worry, Pharaoh is great, right? What's going on with Creative Assembly?
Just what is going on with them? Yeah, what with the Total War series in particular?
I don't know. I think like Pharaoh, like it was leaked that Pharaoh was supposed to be a DLC for another hit Total War game called Troy. And then they spun it off into its own, half-baked game. And I guess that's the controversy. I'm not in the loop about it. I know there's a lot of drama going on at CA internally. That's about it. I mean, I know they've recently upped their prices, and I think a lot of people are upset about that. I think it's just generally what CA's been doing in the past. I don't know. It feels like 12 years now, so how it doesn't feel like new news, but with their DLC policy and such.
Has anybody been following like all the YouTube videos that different creators are posting, talking about like supposed leaks from inside Creative Assembly about the direction that things are going?
I'll click on one every once in a while. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I've watched, I click on it a few times when I'm like, I don't know, just to have something on. I listen to like YouTube videos when I'm doing chores or cleaning around the house or whatever. But
Finnish, have you been following this at all?
No, I know nothing about this drama. You have to fill me in or just send me a video.
yeah, you probably know the most, THG.
What about you, Tortuga? What do you know? I don't know that just like the problem is I watched one video and I don't remember half of it, but
that makes you an expert. Me too. That's exactly the position I'm in right now, buddy.
Post your hot takes to Twitter.
Sir, it's X now.
Actually,
I mean,
I don't. So the gist of it seemed to be that like Total War developers are really upset with sort of the direction that management has taken the series. Management is getting pressured to release games more regularly than they used to. And so what they're doing is rather than developing new games, they're developing like variants of the previous game with new skins effectively. Like,
yeah.
So the whole thing was like, Pharaoh is a fork off of the code for
Troy.
I don't even know if Troy was I don't even know if Troy was
and then Troy was a fork off of the code for Warhammer.
Yeah, that's it.
I remember.
But not even the newest Warhammer. It was like Warhammer 2 forked off to because there's 3 Warhammers, right?
Yeah, but they're all pretty similar, I think.
But honestly, like, so I don't know. I saw that, and then sort of the other gist was like, effectively, like, all these fail sons are just failing upwards, and management is made up of all these folks who don't know what they're doing, and like, oh, it's capitalism, blah blah blah. They're just trying to make more money and release games more frequently. It's a cash cow for Sega, which that I kind of believe, right? Like, they're not putting any.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not putting any investment into it. They're not developing new core features. They're not developing new engines. They're just milking the existing sort of all the hard work under the hood. And they just keep reskinning these games and re-releasing these games. And the pressure is to do it more and more and more and faster and faster and faster. And they have not had like a real core release to the historical side of the series since 3 Kingdoms 4 years ago. Like,
I wouldn't even consider that. 3 Kingdoms was a reskinned Warhammer. The last Total War game I was moderately excited for was Total War Attila.
Well, but Attila was a fork of Total War Rome 2, wasn't it?
I know, and that's even after they burned me with Rome 2.
So, like, I guess you could say the last historical clean sheet design was probably Rome 2, which was 10 years ago.
Where is Warhammer in this? Because that's the last one I was excited about, and I was actually I was happy about Warhammer.
The first Warhammer?
Yeah.
I think that was 2016.
Holy crap. First of all, that's long. But then what came out? Attila came out after that?
Attila was like a year after Rome 2, and Rome 2 was 2013.
So Warhammer was the last. Warhammer was like the last like new thing for them, right? The most recent new.
Define new. I would push back a little bit, Wolf, on 3 Kingdoms not being a clean sheet or new. Like,
so what disinterested me with 3 Kingdoms was their heavy reliance on having like war heroes or whatever act essentially as act essentially as like generals do in Warhammer, killing like entire units, like buffed. I don't know. That doesn't interest me. I want a historical Total War game. I want my general to just be some dude.
Three Kingdoms to me was the last big historical release because it was the last historical release that, like, on its own, you could argue was a complete, like, it's covering this era of history. They hadn't covered it previously. It was new units, like, it wasn't just necessarily just reskin, like, because again, they took the Warhammer aspect of heroes. So, like, there's this whole sort of narrative, like, superhero side of things that was new to the historical,
which I don't like,
and that's fine. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying, like, to me, that was the last, like, big historical release where it's like, we're doing a proper Total War game as, like, a big release in a historical setting. Like, there was Rome 2, and then they did Attila in so Rome 2 was 2013. Attila was 2015, but Attila was, like, very clearly a variant of Rome 2. It wasn't like, you know, it was a smaller version of it, right? Like, we're going to do this.
It was Rome 2's barbarian invasion.
And then, like, the next big historical release was Three Kingdoms in 2019. There was this weird, like, Thrones of Britannia, which it seemed like for a while. But this, I think this goes back to sort of the criticism of management is, like, Britannia was supposed to be this, it's even on the title card, a Total War saga. Like, the idea was we're going to release bite-sized historical games of different eras. So, like, you get way more historical eras, right? So, like, that was the concept behind it, is Britannia's this sort of hyper-focused campaign. Let's do a bunch of that, right? And that's what Troy was, right? Troy was this focused Eastern Aegean campaign looking at, you know, at the war in the movie or the book, the Iliad.
Yeah, they were doing, like, the Bronze Age collapse, right?
Was it even Bronze Age collapse? Wasn't it just Troy? Like, the fight between the Greek islands and Troy? And then, like, Pharaoh, I guess, is theoretically supposed to be a new big game. But again, it's really just sort of another variant off of what had come before. So other than maybe borrowing some of the Warhammer mechanics, they haven't actually done anything new from we're going to reinvent the series. We're going to do all these, like, actual new design concepts. They just kind of keep kicking out the same thing with new skins. That seems to be the general criticism. And they're not and I will say one thing about them not investing. You could tell they weren't investing in new stuff for a good long while, because the games were 32-bit, I think, maybe until Warhammer 2 in 2017.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yeah, if you would go in and you would do like a benchmark, it would show like a RAM limit that was basically based off XP. Like 3 gigs of RAM was effectively the limit.
I had no idea. That's wild.
Until fairly recently. I think in the last couple of years they upgraded to 64-bit, but it was the under the hood architecture was 32 for a good long while.
Oh, by the way, I checked the Pharaoh set during, like, starting at the Bronze Age collapse.
Gotcha. So the general criticism seems to be, like, developers are really frustrated. Business keeps making these decisions to kick out new games. They're not, like, actually giving them the tools they need. They're not really allowing them the time to, like, actually design a new proper historical game. And it's just sort of rehashing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And that, like, sort of CA is just sort of collapsing from within, and a lot of the community, especially in the content community space, is really just losing interest in the series, right? Like, they're expected to keep buying the games and they're not doing anything new. And so, like, why is anyone going to keep buying the series? And, you know, business being disconnected from the actual developers and from the player base is leading to a lot of this pushback and this frustration against the series or the company. And I don't know, I guess I'd be curious what anybody else's take is on this, Tortuga. I don't know if you have any opinions.
I just realized that the Brewers manager was picked up by the Cubs.
That was the most exciting news this month.
Yeah, that's hilarious, by the way. I do love all the Brewers fans just coping, but like THG, frankly. But no, going back, I will say, I know if I played Total War Warhammer, I'd love it. I played tabletop Warhammer, 40K, and I used to play fantasy with my Bretonians.
You never played Warhammer?
I thought you both bought it and you were going to play together.
No, we talked about it, but like everything, our plans fell through. But yeah, no, yeah. I know if I played Total War Warhammer, I'd love it. I love that stuff. But I think of Total War games, I think to Rome, or the original Rome. You know, I mean, that's the Total War I remember and I quite frankly love. And all this new stuff, like, it just doesn't, on the outside looking in, the mechanics do not interest me. And I guess I look for historical Total Wars. Like, I love Shogun 2. I think Shogun 2 is awesome. I think that game is, you know, as perfect as a Total War game can get.
Agreed. Yeah, that's my number 2. I mean, I think it probably is my, like, right now, I think my favorite Total War game to play is Warhammer. Because it's the newest, you know, it has all the new stuff, and it's also a lot of fun. Shogun 2 is probably, I don't know, it's right up there still, despite how dated it is. And then Rome Total War is just because it's the original, man. It's the original love. You'll never forget your original love.
Yeah, I can agree with that. My hot take is Shogun 2 looks better than Rome 2.
I agree.
That game looks phenomenal. I love the art style in Shogun 2, like the art direction. Like, I think they nailed it. I don't know.
Part of me wonders how much the release of the Warhammer series threw the historical games sort of onto the back burner.
Oh, I'd say it absolutely did.
And maybe sort of the cause of some of this, right? Like, because the focus of the community seems to mostly be on the historical titles. Rome 2, which had a lot of issues at launch, but Rome 2, 45,000 reviews on Steam. Pretty good number, right? Attila, which was sort of a variant of that and certainly was not as popular, 22,000. Also worth mentioning, when they did a ton of DLCs, they were always Rome 2, not Attila. So, like, Rome 2 got a lot longer support. And they had they were still releasing Rome 2 DLCs not that long ago, I think. There was like the Crisis of the Second Century. There was a Rise of whatever. Like, I think the last one, it looks like, came out about, I guess maybe not quite as recently as I was thinking, but still about 5 years ago. So they kept releasing. They released 14 DLCs for Rome 2.
They had a big update recently. Yeah, they added like the family trees and stuff from Attila into Rome 2.
But in any event, they released DLCs until 2018. So for 5 years, so they had 45,000 reviews on Rome 2. Warhammer, the first one, 30,000. So Rome 2, certainly more popular. Warhammer 2, 81,000 Steam reviews.
I mean, there's your answer. There's the reason they don't care about historical titles, because they don't sell in comparison.
Warhammer 3, 64,000. Troy, a Total War Saga, 2,000 reviews.
Well, they really hit it out of the park, man. I mean, I love history games. I loved those previous titles. And I just said, I think Warhammer right now is probably my favorite Total War game to play.
For what it's worth, Three Kingdoms does have 55,000. So, like, Three Kingdoms, I think, sold pretty well. But still, it was piggybacking, to your point, Wolf, off a lot of the Warhammer stuff. So, but I would also, I think one of the other things I just want to point out is, like, a lot of folks are like, oh, they're just trying to get us release variants of variants. I don't think that's new. Like, part of me wonders how much of this is just how much of this is disgruntled devs as opposed to, like, is it everybody? Who's choosing to leak these things? What are their agendas? I'm not saying there aren't issues with the Total War series. I think we've expressed some concern here. But I would also say, like, a lot of the folks posting on YouTube are posting things that they're just sort of taking at face value. And you're not wondering, like, all right, so if this developer is saying something, what's their agenda, right? Like, this may be objective, or it may be like they're not doing what I personally want them to do, right? Like, that doesn't necessarily mean the company's making horrible, short-sighted decisions. You know, the idea of they're just building things off forks, like, that's
smart. That's what they've always done.
They've always done this, right? Like, they used to do it in a DLC form, but Total War Empire, the big game, Total War Napoleon, the small variant built off a Total War Empire, Total War Shogun.
I mean, Shogun 2, Fall of the Samurai. Yep.
Right, exactly. Total War 2, Total War Attila. They literally always have big game, small game. Now, maybe they're doing it more frequently now, which I don't know that that's even necessarily true. There was 4 years between Attila and Three Kingdoms, and then there was 2 years. There was 2 years between Three Kingdoms and Troy. I guess now there's only been a year. 2 years between Troy and Pharaoh. So, like, I don't know that they're really speeding up things that much on the historical side of. I certainly see the lack of investment. Again, I mentioned, like, when I was doing some benchmark stuff, you could tell it was still 32-bit. So, like, there are indications that maybe they haven't invested in the core mechanics they need to bring the series up to date. I think there's a good argument that they haven't innovated much on the historical side of things, and that they need to if they probably want to get folks excited again. Or maybe they just need to make a Medieval 3. At the end of the day, I just wonder how much of these leaks are, how much of this is genuine, and how much of this is just a couple of disgruntled devs saying things to folks because their particular preferences of the way to run the business aren't occurring. Not to be like Total War management's all great. Like I think they have their own issues. But I do wonder, I don't know, like some of this doesn't feel new.
But what, even if they're true, what would you do about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like the cost of development of games is only going up, right? So like I understand why folks would be like, we need to make more money in order to keep making these games. You know, one of the things is they're like the historical audience isn't growing at all, which like maybe that's true, right? And that's why they went into the fiction stuff and they went into the Warhammer stuff to appeal to a new audience. Is that bad? You know, like the dev might not like it, but is it bad?
It's so funny. In 2016, I remember I was at a Games Workshop store playing 40K and talking about how the fact that Total War is going to do fantasy is just like the worst move ever. Like I was like, this is going to fail. It's going to be crap. If only I knew what it would turn into. Like it's just so funny thinking back.
I just don't know what people would do about this anyway. Like, let's say the Creative Assembly. I mean, it's good to like talk about these things and like make sure that Creative Assembly knows that there is some public pushback, that their perception is not like the perception of their development process is not good because they're reusing things too much. You know, that's a natural thing. Basically, this is like a market forces driven world, right? I mean, to some degree, I think I agree with people who are saying that this is capitalism. Like if you have a game that is basically just printing money for you, how, if it's your livelihood, like we're thinking about it from a purist point, oh God, give us the best games. But from a perspective that somebody's
flutters eyes.
Exactly. But from the perspective that somebody's trying to feed their kids or I mean, I'm sure it's greedy and it's buying their second Porsche or whatever.
I'm trying to get my stock to go up, buddy.
Exactly. Yeah, stockholders. Who's thinking about them, Mr. Incredible?
When someone think of the shareholders.
But yeah, that's the way it is, though. I mean, when you have a successful business, it's really hard to get a business person not to keep sticking to the plan.
Yeah. Imagine that investor call.
Exactly.
Like, okay, I know we're pumping money, but we're going to pump the brakes real quick because some of the community's a little upset.
Well, I think you position it in a way of like, hey, in order to maintain the audience that we have, we've got to make investments in the future, and this is the investment we have, right? Like, I do think there are valid concerns of if you keep releasing the same game over and over and over again, at some point, you are going to lose the audience that you have. They're going to think you're not doing enough to keep things interesting. Other developers will do stuff, right? Like Manor Lords, right? That's a game you're super excited about. And you mentioned Hooded Horse before, Tortuga. Like,
yeah, love them both.
There are other studios who will come in and they will do things that will eat away at your margins. They'll eat away at your audience if you're too complacent.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Like if you just keep the same product and keep pumping it, like you're going to have an Apple II problem where like you haven't innovated and the rest of the industry has passed you by and you lose considerable market share at some point.
Well, that's maybe true, but it's a complicated problem. If I'm in the closed door discussions of CA, I don't have a recommendation for them. Like, what's the recommendation? Come up with something good? Like, okay, well then what is that? What does that look like?
Are you winning, son?
It's hard to dismiss the short-term gain. I bet CA's been through this how many times now? They've been in hot water with their community how many times? They'll do something. They'll get a free DLC, and it'll be water under the bridge, and then they'll keep just slowly ramping it up again until it happens again. I feel like this is cyclical. Like we talk about CA.
I feel like Finnish is over there in the corner just being like, what am I on? The Bootlickers podcast? They're all just like, yeah, they're doing what they need to do. Like it's all fine.
They're talking about their thing. I
Wolfpack345 love brand.
I love when brand deposits check into bank account, all this topic, this discussion, it reminded me like almost to a T with EA Sports and their sports games that they publish every single year. They're going to pump out the same product, not make a whole lot of changes because a microtransaction game mode's making them a bunch of money, and they're not going to change that because, it's making them a bunch of money. So the investors, the stockholders aren't going to demand changes, and gamers are angry. So this is like the same situation. It's all these game companies are dealing with this. And is the community going to like force a change? It doesn't like seem like it. They don't have like any sort of power.
Yeah, and one of the other things also to mention that the videos and the leakers were talking about, like a key part of the decision making, apparently, again, this is all allegedly, was that CA was seeing based on their data, our audience is not growing. We are not getting more historical players, which I don't know if that's true based on the timelines that were shared in those videos, but so that was their conclusion is we're not getting bigger. So we got to get more, right? Like we got to publish more so we can keep driving the revenue up, which maybe that would explain why they went to Warhammer. But I would also say, I think CA's kind of painted themselves into a bit of a corner. And the reason I say, and not necessarily because of bad decisions, but like Total War is known as within the strategy space. It is known as being the highest, I don't know if production value is the right word, but like the highest fidelity of the tactical war gamers, right?
Yeah, graphically, easily.
And the problem with that is that does not leave you wiggle room, right? Like if someone was to be like, let's make a Total War game with a bunch of new stuff, and the way that we're going to get this justified and the way that we're going to fund this is by cutting back on the graphics a bit, because graphics aren't getting cheaper. It's getting more expensive, right? Like the higher the production value gets pushed up, the harder it gets for mom and pop companies to compete at a graphical level. There's like a level you can compete at, but you're not going to compete with CA on graphical 3D soldier, things if you're like an indie.
First, I want to know who the mom and pop video game developers are.
I mean, I don't know, anything that Matrix develops, because a lot of their devs are actually part-time. But I hear you.
It's just a funny term.
I will say this: if you asked me what I thought playing Total War in 15 years would be like, playing Rome 1, it's like, what's Total War going to be in 15 years? I would think the battles would be insanely massive. Like the amount of infantry we would have on screen would be like close to real life. That's what I was imagining, not the same unit sizes we've had in Rome.
I think they'd have to completely change their way their order of battle works so that you could actually have like other war games that are more interested in being war games. They have orders of battle in a way that like I can select a division and move them. And like Total War is too much. Each individual unit you raise is what you have to commit. Like the UI would not support it.
But it's just like, that's what like my young self had in my head.
I really like that, Wolf. I mean, I think it's really cool. I don't even know if I had the brains to put that thought together. I was probably like, oh my God, this game's so good. I didn't even think about what I thought it would look like in 15 years. So I'm glad you shared that. I wish I even could add to that.
Yeah, I just always was thinking like, gosh, like one day we'll have battles that are close to real, like I'll have this many people on the screen, and it's just like that has not happened.
I mean, that was always my criticism. There are other games that have tried to, like Scourge of War, for all of its faults, like it doesn't look great. It's 2D sprites, like on a sort of 3D-ish map, but they've got 100,000 sprites on the map for the Battle of Waterloo. That's not something that Total War does. That being said, I think where I was going with Total War painting themselves into the corner is they've gone so far down this, like we're going to have the breaking edge, high fidelity stuff. One, it's hard when you're always at the edge of graphical rendering for your soldiers to be able to ever scale that up, because the quality of the graphics keeps going up, which means you never get that bandwidth within the tech to build larger scale.
I disagree.
Okay, fine.
That's what innovation is. I mean, that's how do you think that they do any of these things? Like new tech is about innovating. And if Creative Assembly's next dev team was given a high priority task to increase the number of high fidelity individual soldiers, they could do it.
I think it's like a slider. The question is like, where do your priorities lie? And it seems like their priorities for a long time have laid on we will always err on the side of making the graphics look as good as possible within the current scale of soldiers. And as technology increases and graphics get better, they're not changing that priority mix. I think you're right, but I do think there is a level of trade-off of, hey, maybe we just don't make the graphics look that much better, but we go for scale. Like that's a different assignment than what they have right now.
And I will say, I bet if they made their graphics the same from another game and up the scale, or even worse to up the scale. They would be hearing about it.
And I think that's part of the problem.
They probably have looked at this though, right? I mean, I'm trying to imagine how maybe there's been modded versions of the Total War games that allow you to control like 50 different units instead of, I think the limit normally is 20.
There are mods, yeah. There are mods that up the sizes of particular units. I don't think you can change it so like in Rome 2, you can control up to 40 units if you have 2 armies go into a battle. And in that, they'll up the unit size, but that's about it. That's all they can really do.
When you control 40, though, do people, when they're in that situation, start to realize, oh, wow, controlling more than 20 is actually more taxing than I would like, and maybe I wish it was down to 20 again?
I don't know. I always loved it whenever I had a big battle.
Well, and didn't you wasn't the limit at one point slightly higher if it was you had 2 armies, like a reinforcing army, and then you could keep cycling in new units as the other ones routed off? So like there were ways to have bigger battles, but
oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah,
but I think my point is, by being the high fidelity developer, that sort of paints them into this corner of like, this is what our customers expect. And I think a dev like Hooded Horse can come in and, hey, if we get the graphics 80% of the way there, it's exponentially less expensive to do that. But there aren't the expectations from the audience that it's going to look the way that Total War is going to look. And so we can do a lot of different interesting things at a lower budget, and we can compete in that way. And I don't know that Total War could have a strategic sort of reassessment of what they're doing in that same way without risking a lot in a way that a new entrant can.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I think that's kind of part of the problem. I don't know. I don't know that Total War is fundamentally different than it has been, but I do think there seems to be a general consensus within a lot of game developers or game fans, be it Paradox, Creative Assembly, Madden. There just seems to be a general discontent with sort of complacency within some of the elements of those games, be it Call of Duty, and yet people continue to buy the games. So I don't know that anything is going to change until people stop buying those games.
And I think people who are complaining, like us right now, are the vocal minority, like we were complaining about earlier. Like the number sheets don't lie.
I think it's a little different.
Oh, no, that was different when it's us?
Yeah, we're better.
Yeah, and I'm perfect. That can't possibly be correct, Wolf.
I do think our cause is better.
I was separated into 2 things, because we're not on the forums like we're not driving CA's things. Well, this is kind of like I would say that just the standard like complaining that people do about anything. Like, are we still using Microsoft Word? Yeah, but I mean, it's for like 30 years people have been like, man, Microsoft Word is shit. But actually, you know what? It's actually the best thing you have.
It's pretty good.
We're just going to complain about it, and that's what we do, right?
Yeah, that's what podcasts are all about, complaining.
Well, the core of this discussion was that competition creates innovation.
That's absolutely true.
So, this is a very pro-capitalist podcast.
Shove it up their commie asses, sir.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah! Happy Veterans Day, by the way. We're recording this on Veterans Day. Thank you to all who've served.
And all who that will serve. Could be you listening. You could be like, I'm about to serve.
This broadcast sponsored by the U.S. Army.
Hey, if the U.S. Army wants to sponsor us, I'll cash those checks.
Hell yeah. I'd take a U.S. Army sponsorship any day of the week.
We'll do it for free.
No, we won't. We won't do it for free, Tortuga. We will take money.
They got a big marketing budget. The Pentagon just throws money at marketing. They can give us something.
I don't know. See, I don't pay taxes, so I feel like this is the only way I can give back.
Listen, if the U.S. government poured as much money as they did into America's Army, whatever that video game or whatever, like they can pay that. They can pay us.
American Army, yeah, that was a good one, man.
I don't think they put that much money into that game, did they?
I mean, it was probably like for Tortuga, my rating scale's pretty critical. It was probably like a 7, maybe even 8 out of 10.
Don't just count the development budget. They advertised the shit out of that.
Yeah, that's true. Because it's free. Wasn't it free to play?
It was. That was, I mean, the whole thing was like, hey, let's recruit people through games. Like that was the idea. That's how they got paid.
Well, now the U.S. Army has an esports team.
Like League of Legends? I don't know how that fits.
I don't know what they... I wonder if it's like Overwatch. Like he's over there playing as...
Diva. It's Winston, yeah.
Widowmaker, Yeah, Diva.
Does the U.S. Navy have an Azure Lane team?
Oh, they better.
That'd be awesome.
What I want to know is what the Coast Guard team looks like. I saw this meme the other day that had a Zumwalt and then a F-35, I think, in the foreground. And it was like the Coast Guard when the Air Force and the Navy are showing off their $1 billion toys, and they're just happy to have like a cameo. And there's like a tiny little like inflatable boat like in the corner just speeding along. It's just like, yeah, poor Coast Guard.
I love the Coast Guard. I love the Coast Guard. Nothing but respect for those guys and gals.
Ashton Kutcher made a movie about them, didn't he?
I don't know who that is.
I don't know who that is, he says. He wasn't in the Barbie movie.
All right, old man. This is off the rails. That's it, gamers. It's 12:01.
Yeah, it's getting late, so we're actually going to go ahead and wrap this episode up here. I do want to thank our guests, Finnish Jager and Wolfpack345 for coming on to the Single Malt Strategy podcast once again, and my trusty co-host Tortuga Power as always. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer, as always, saying thank you very much for watching, listening, however you consume your podcasts. If you do like this, please don't hesitate to drop us a review or at least throw some stars up on your podcast app of choice. But until next time, we're out.